This presentation was kind of put together a little while ago as sort of a response to some of the comments we were getting at the last Parents for Partners meeting, and also some feedback we've been getting from parents actually from really a long time ago. Really that our resources we have are pretty varied. It covers a lot of different things that we put out there for parents, but they're kind of scattered about in some different places. And so what I'm going to kind of talk through this evening is really kind of the vision of where we're going in the future. And I've got some screenshots up here, and I can jump into Schoology when we get there to show you some demos and things like that. But it's really kind of just a preview of what we're looking at doing and where we want to go. And to that end, I think both Jeremy and I are really looking for really any suggestions you have or things that you'd like to see, because at this point, not everything's set in stone. I mean, some of the applications really aren't going to be changing, but how we use those, how we communicate out with some different things will certainly be up for discussion. So one of the first things that we've talked about, you may have seen the start page for students. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's the one page that's basically the first screen that comes up whenever you open a web browser on a student machine. And it has links to just about every imaginable application that students use, whether it's a district-provided one or curriculum-related. And sorry, I got kicked off there. Whether it's that or curriculum-related or something else. Oh, yes, that's the right one, if this works. Since the Apple TV seems to want to go through software updates continuously. So we wanted to build a page that would contain pretty much all those same resources, but from a parent perspective, so that parents would really have one place to start with. This isn't really good when the director of technology has trouble operating the projector. I may have to steal your laptop, Jeremy.
Is this set for her TV video? Is that why it's
I keep swapping it back and forth.
Okay.
It's not happy either way I go. No, I don't want HDMI. Computer one, I'll set up. There we go. Okay. Back to where we were. Parent start page. So this is a page we started putting together, and the reason I'm not actually showing the whole site or releasing it, which is originally what the plan was for this event back about a month ago, that we'd be launching it. We're actually redesigning the entire district webpage. And as a result, this page, which as it's kind of seen here, was a standalone site. And as we go to redesign the entire district site, all of these resources will probably be incorporated into the new district site. So it's not actually out there yet that you can get to. If you guess the URL, you can get to it. But what it is really a launch point for a lot of the different applications that we have here. Sapphire you're already familiar with. Schoology and Moodle, I'm going to talk a little bit about later. Same with ParentLink. The district curriculum site, is everybody familiar with Drew's site that she has that has all the year-at-a-glance documents? It's curriculum.hemfieldsd.org if you're not familiar with it. But it's a really great resource if you're looking for the material that's actually being shared or taught in the classroom. The parent accounts are actually my next two slides, which I'm going to go through. Curriculum resources, again, was another feature commonly requested thing that parents have been asking for. What are some tutorials that I can share with my kids, that can help me learn, whether it be math, any of the concepts that are being taught. So we've been kind of kicking back and forth some different ways of organizing all that. And one of the things we wanted to include on this site was really an indexed, organized list of some of those resources from the different curriculums that we use for coursework. Along with the parent access, again, which I'll get to when we get to different accounts, some instructions on accessing the wireless network in the district, some background information on the district app, and Schoology as well, which is going to play a major role as we kind of move into that one-to-one program. So again, the kind of the goal and kind of the main feature that came out of the topic or the presentation description here is this launch point for parents, which is still kind of under construction, but the goal is really to put all these resources under one spot to make it a little bit easier to get to everything. So before I move on, just any questions or ideas, things you might want to see us include in something like this? Or if not, feel free to yell as I go through the rest of the slides. So, okay. Sapphire, you're probably already familiar with, and this is where I'm going to kind of go through some of the different applications that we have here. Sapphire, if you're not already familiar with it, if you don't have an account, it's really the main location for accessing all of the, I'm going to call it static information about your kids. That is all of the database stuff that we keep. So things like grades and IPRs, report cards, attendance, all of the record keeping, if you will, that comes out about each of your students. That Sapphire is really the place to go, and for the foreseeable future will continue to be the place that you go for all of that detailed information. The sign-up process is really driven by how it was designed in the software by our vendor, K-12 Systems. And to get that username and password and actually PIN for Sapphire, you sign up online, print out an application, the district receives it, verifies the information, and then approves it. It's a good way to weed out who's actually supposed to have access for us to verify it, but it can be somewhat of a cumbersome process sometimes. But overall, once you're in there, you do have access to a ton of information. That last bullet point actually is something new that Jeremy just turned on a couple weeks ago. If you go in there into Sapphire now, you can change contact info for any of the emergency contacts for yourself. If you have phone number updates, email changes, you can relay that to the district automatically. And that gets updated in all of our records instantaneously after it's been approved. What we're intending to launch coming up here shortly is really another username and password for this whole slew of applications over there on the right-hand side. And the reason we have to do it as a separate username and password is that Sapphire really has no way of sharing the login information that's in its database with any of these other systems that we're looking at providing. It's kind of unfortunate. We researched and tried to reverse engineer a ton of ways to come up with a second login or a single login for both, but at this point it's not really possible. So what we're planning to do is auto-generate a username and password, or auto-generate a username out of the Sapphire Lives With contacts. So that's anybody in the student's primary household, generate a username for them and mail that home. And the process is a little bit easier than the Sapphire setup, and it's really just a self-activation with a cell phone. So you'll go to a website, enter your username, and it's already going to know the cell phone that's associated with that parent account from Sapphire. It texts you a 4 or 6-digit PIN. You re-enter that, and that's how you authorize the account for yourself. So it kind of gets around us knowing passwords, changing passwords back and forth, and it still relies on you having something to authenticate who you are based on the information that was provided to us in all of the contact records in Sapphire. So what does this second account actually get you into? Well, first and foremost, it restores all the functionality in the mobile app that used to be there that you could sign in as a parent. I know that was something that we had some complaints about when it went away. The problem was that we couldn't merge the two account systems together. The one that came from Sapphire, the account system that was previously in the mobile app, relied on this kind of hack together thing where it merged part of the PIN, and it was kind of a mess to maintain and didn't really work right. So what these accounts are really standard usernames. There's no adding on the PIN and remembering how it goes. It's just a regular username that you can sign into and look at things. The Parent Link website is kind of an extension of that, and I actually have slides for each of these, so I'm going to just go through them. Schoology coming up with the one-to-one program. The one-to-one portal is actually a new application we've never shared with anybody, but it's kind of neat for what you'll be able to do once we have one-to-one devices out there for all of your children. The district website, as I mentioned, the district website is being rebuilt from scratch. We haven't finalized all the features or how that'll work, but there is the potential there that this account could be used to kind of customize the home screen view. So if you want to see more of an elementary focus, you'll be able to customize the district site. But That's still kind of up in the air. And then finally, as I mentioned before, you'll be able to use the account to access the district wireless network in any of the buildings, the stadium, anywhere around here. So Parent Link, again, the view you're probably familiar with is the sign-in on the app that allows you to see your students' grades, attendance, alert notifications. All that's still there once it's turned back on with that username and password. But the nice part about Parent Link is it's actually the management system for our app, but it's also our notification system. So if you get that phone call when we're doing an early dismissal or something like that, or if your child has been late to school, you get a phone call about it, at least in the secondary. Actually, no, K through 12, you get that now. By signing into the web interface of Parent Link, which is the same backend as the app, you have access to basically everything that's in the app, so grades, attendance, and whatnot, but also kind of a historical record of all of the communications that have been sent out to your students. So you'll be able to go back and listen to all of the messages that came from the district, whether it was an early dismissal, an attendance call. If you weren't sure what you heard, you can always go back and see, oh, well, this is when I got the attendance call. Or if you weren't home and someone says, no, I never got it, there was never a phone call that came in and said, you can actually go back and verify when the call came in, who it went to, and things like that. So you can really go back and review a lot of that information. And then on the app side, still have access to all of the student grades, set the alerts up, and things like that were in there before. Schoology is the next piece that all of this account will let you into. And as Chris mentioned in the keynote, the learning management system is another key component that we're going to be rolling out with teachers. And in a one-to-one, the device is obviously a critical component of a one-to-one, but really almost, and if not more importantly, is the learning management system that drives the one-to-one in the classroom. In other words, it's really kind of the digital classroom where all of the digital materials for that class are located, whether it's worksheets, handouts, tutorials, instructions, videos, course updates, announcements, anything you can ever think of really related to that one-to-one is going to be housed in the learning management system. Now, we previously used Moodle as our learning management system. And as we looked through what those features were, how Moodle was working, we looked at or talked to teachers that were in our pilot groups with one-to-one. There were a number of challenges with Moodle, maintaining it, integrating multimedia, using it on any kind of mobile device. It just didn't work. And so we kind of went out and started searching for new learning management systems that would meet all those needs. And Schoology eventually fit the bill very well for us, and we're pretty happy with how it turned out. And it's really going to be the platform that we base one-to-one around. And so what the nice part of it is, students obviously are going to have a complete view of all of this from their iPads for everything, but you as parents are also going to have a login and can essentially log in and see all of those materials, all of the one-to-one stuff, if you will, that students are accessing on their devices, but you get to see it through the lens of a parent. There's a couple things that are hidden, like you can't see the names of the other students in the class, but you still have access to you'll still have access to all of the course materials that are in there. So if you want to know what was the worksheet that was done today in class, you'll be able to go in there, click, download it, and take a look at it. If you're curious, if there was a really awesome tutorial that somebody put together in class, on how to do a certain activity, you can click and watch that video. The one Schoology page that I've got up here is actually the resource page for the high school physics classes. If you're familiar with the high school physics program, they do some really cool science projects senior year. This is actually the one they have currently loaded is the spring car. I'm not sure if any of you have ever seen that, but this is just an example of a Schoology page where they've got all kinds of different resources and materials about this project. They've got some examples of how to use what kind of axles are in here. There's some video archives of previous successful runs. So a lot of rich multimedia stuff that can be pushed out directly to students to have access to anywhere, anytime. Beneficial for the students, obviously, but you'll also be able to sign in and really access all of these resources as well. Schoology also provides a really nice end-to-end workflow for paperless assignments. That is any assignment that you can create on the iPad or computer electronically. Once it's submitted electronically into Schoology, there's a complete end-to-end process for the teacher that they can grade everything electronically, comment on it electronically, and send it back to the student electronically. So there's not really any paper involved. And you can really go through that entire process. Even the commenting and conversation about the assignment can all be done electronically. Teachers can annotate assignments even with their voice. So if you can't really capture in writing or with the red pen what you wanted to share with a student about the assignment, you can actually record audio annotations, even video annotations if you really wanted to, about that with the student. So it's a very extensive platform, very powerful platform in terms of what you're going to be able to do with the one-to-one devices when they get out of there, when we get to that point. A couple of the other nice features of Schoology. One of the main reasons we picked it was also for its extensive communication abilities. In that I mentioned Moodle really had no mobile applications. Schoology has a complete mobile application that has almost, 95-ish% of the features of the web version. So if you have a phone, if you have a tablet, if you have an Android tablet, if you have really any device, whatever, you can access all of this information from anywhere. If you're a parent, you can switch back and forth between your different children and see what each one is doing at any given time in their classes. Notifications are another key piece that we hear a lot of people like to get. The notification system in Schoology, obviously there's email, that's always there, but you can do text messaging. So if you enter a phone number, you can get text message updates. Or if you have the app installed, you can get push messages just like the district app as well. So really a great platform for really delivering anything that is related to the daily routine inside the classroom. So you have Sapphire on one hand, that's really all the record-keeping database stuff, and then you're going to end up with Schoology on the other hand that has all of the classroom materials from an educational side of things. The last bullet here is something that I just kind of was curious what your thoughts are. In some of the conversations with Drew, and particularly what's going on in that other session right now, there's obviously a lot of interest in learning, again, how the elementary math system works and some different topics like that. And one of the things we have kicked around is actually building some courses inside of Schoology specifically for parents. So if you want to learn about a particular topic, whatever it might be, you could sign into Schoology as yourself and actually take an online course that would cover some of these different topics that people have commonly requested. So I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are, if that's something that you think would be worthwhile us developing, building, putting the time into, and if you think people would actually use it if we went that far. So, I don't know.
Question.
Yes.
So when I get a login, will it be all the children? I have multiple children. Will I have one login, or will I have one for each child?
You'll have one login that you can switch back and forth between all the kids after you sign in.
Because like I know my high schooler, he has stuff on Schoology, and we saw it at back to school night, and the teacher said she would give us the access code if we needed it, or I can use his, but I don't have my own now. Like I can't get that yet. That's going to roll out.
You can, right now, if you just sign up to the normal Schoology, not schoology.hempfieldsd.org, I think you can use the access code. Am I right, Jeremy?
Well, like the teacher
Does that
said
sound
she
correct?
could give us one if we want. I forget which teacher.
If you create a generic Schoology account and the teacher gives the access code, I think it doesn't work that way. Okay. If not, yeah, you're going to have a login that lets you in here as a parent, because the parent view is kind of, like I said, a little bit different. You can switch back and forth between your kids. One of the challenges is right now Schoology is only really at the secondary level. We launched it at the start of the year for grades 7 through 12. Next year, elementary is obviously coming online. However, there's still obviously some ramp-up time to getting all of the materials in there. And one of the things we actually just had a meeting about it today is we're working on setting up some guidelines and milestones and things like that to share with teachers to get them moving in this direction. Because obviously the high school isn't going to have one-to-one devices for 3 years, but we don't want teachers waiting until the very last minute to put all of that material into Schoology then. So we want to build slowly to get everybody up and running. So next year, you're obviously going to have a login to Schoology, but depending on the grade level, there might not be a whole lot in some of those courses. 4th grade, obviously, you're going to see a lot of information in there once one-to-one gets rolling. and particularly in the secondary level where it's already been used for a year. I know for the first year, a lot of teachers were just kind of taking a look at it and seeing what it was before switching over from Google. So, all right, that was Schoology. The next application, this is something we've never actually shared with anybody yet, but it's going to be launched in conjunction with the one-to-one. And it's something that we kind of identified as a need really to kind of support parents with the one-to-one and provide some information about the device and how it's being used in the classroom. And so with that parent login that I talked about, you'll be able to sign into this and get a look at, and I have some different sections blanked out here because it's actually running with data from our Read 180 class at Blandesville Middle School. But you'll be able to see the device that's been assigned to your student, some information about it, whether or not the passcode's enabled. Anytime we go through service and support, you'll be able to see what the techs did, whether they replaced a screen, when it was added to inventory, things like that. There's a communication system that's built in here for sending tickets back and forth with techs, and I'm running out of time here really quick. And then finally, probably one of the more interesting things that's going to be in there is you're going to be able to see all of the software that's installed on your student's iPad. So if you're kind of curious what apps they've been using, you'll actually be able to see a not live inventory of what's on there, but it's relatively recent. I think it's once a week or once every couple days that inventory is updated, and you'll be able to see what they actually have on there. So again, I can answer more one-to-one questions, but this app, again, is going to be coming next year with the one-to-one rollout when it happens.
Are you doing any testing with the kids with this?
It's not quite ready for prime time because I'm kind of writing this
I think it would be
yeah.
helpful as a parent of a
Yeah.
maybe that we're kind of doing half.
Yeah. I would love to say it'll be ready to a point where we can roll it out, but it's not quite there yet. There's definitely some pieces that I don't want to release it because, again, it's obviously pulling real student data, and I don't want to have that mixed up and have the wrong student show up with a different parent. So at this point, I don't know. We'll see. But again, we're kind of excited to be able to offer that as an option for parents going into next year. Finally, guest Wi-Fi, we already talked about that. With the username and password you'll be able to sign in the stadium, district buildings, really anywhere you go. The last slide I had on here, just if you're kind of curious what the start page, take a look at start.students.hempfieldsd.org. That's the start page we have for the student body. So that's got a lot of instructions on similar things that you'd see on the parent side as far as how to get on the wireless network, what are some of the applications, what are some of the supplemental resources. We're kind of using that as a model for what the parent side would look like. But I see I've kind of run out of time here, so if you got any questions for me, please feel free to ask. Sorry we got off on a bumpy start with the projector, but hope it was helpful and gave you some ideas on what you might see in the future. So, thanks.
Thank you.